Okay, there were some things that I had posted earlier this evening. Um, Talking about the civil rights, the truth about the civil rights movement, and also things that I had posted about, of course, the former presidents or the dead presidents, which is Abraham Lincoln and also with Washington. And oh, what else did I talk about? Okay, we're gonna start with the civil rights stuff. Okay, which one came first? Well, anyway, I was posting a lot of things, and yes, I have to do things in a matter of time as I'm going through because there's just so much to cover, there's so much to talk about. So I try to post these things, then come back later and probably give you my, content. Okay. So here we see, I have here the truth about the civil rights, about Malcolm and Martin. There isn't a Malcolm without Martin, and it isn't a Martin without Malcolm. Them both of them go together. So both of them had two different ways of how they did things and how they, of course, used their movement during that time. And I explained in in what I posted on my community post that what was the difference between the two of them. Malcolm, of course, was older than Martin. Martin was still a young man. And a lot of people never understood when he started his ministry. Martin never really truly had lived in any kind of poverty. He wasn't grown in poverty. His family was wealthy. His family was a Republican, black family. And his family didn't have that experience. I mean, of course, they experienced Jim Crow when it was a separation of where blacks lived and where white people lived, but there was also a separation among the wealthy blacks in the ghetto of America. There was the wealthy, and then there was the ones who was disadvantaged or was struggle that was the poor. And I'm talking about poor, poor. Okay. I remember when I was a kid, my mother had a library in the house for us. She was always into pushing education into her children. She always wanted a better life for us. She didn't want to see us ever being anybody's servants or being servitudes for the rest of our life. She always wanted us to be able to own our own and be able to be great at whatever we did. We was just going to have to learn how to be great people in society. Her life wasn't supposed to be our life, you see, because she was trying to push us to do better than what she had, the advantages we had that she didn't have growing up from the South and came to the North and, got stuck in a marriage and had a lot of children. And then her life just right there was, kind of like stagnated for herself because she had a lot of kids, through her marriage. And in those days, you just had to, you know, hang in there. You made your choice. You had to live with your choices. It wasn't like today where you got so many other options. When my mother time was coming up, it wasn't that many options out there. Either you was going to be stay in your marriage, your bad marriage with whatever man you married, or struggle and be on your own and go crazy and have all your kids removed from your care. And that is how the system was set up back then. Martin did not come from poverty. He came from a wealthy background. He came from a prominent Baptist preacher, which was his dad. And they also worked among a lot of prominent blacks at the time as well that helped through Ebenezer Baptist Church. It was a family business, and a lot of people respected. He lived with a respectful father, was respected by most of the people that came and contributed to his ministry. His ministry also helped him to travel, which he used to travel, go other places in the world, and also come back to teach his his people, certain things he would experience from other places in the world. Martin had that type of advantage in his life. But then it came up, civil rights movement came up with Rosa Parks. I believe it started with Rosa Parks. It might have started before Rosa Parks. From what I've read, it started with Rosa Parks. Okay. This is what's in history books, all right? That she was like one of the first women that worked as, I think she had a job as a domestic or some kind of job. I don't think she was a domestic. I got to go back and see what Rosa, let me find out. We're going to research it together. What Rosa Parks' profession was. Cuz I know she wasn't at some level of being domestic, cuz Rosa Parks was part of the, she came from pretty much of her life was really pretty much, you can consider in the black, enjoying that time. She was an educated black woman. She wasn't from the slums of the ghettos of America. She grew up pretty well. You know, she lived in the prominent areas of the black culture in those times. So did Martin. So did a lot of other civil rights people. They didn't live in slums and ghettos and had rats and roaches running around in their place. Let me show you. All right. Let me just go and we're going to do it here and find out what was Rosa Parks' profession before the civil rights movement. She had, I think she was a secretary or something. She wasn't no, I know she wasn't nobody that, I know she wasn't no ghetto. Yep. She worked as a seamstress. Okay, she was a seamstress, and seamstress in those days made a lot of money. It was a business that really, because in those days, women, they sold, they made clothes. Look, I gave you the thing on Betsy Ross. She was the woman who put the flag that created the stars on the flag for Washington. If you go back into American history, you're gonna find out that seamstress were very respected with they craft. And that's what she was. And then later on she was promoted up and she became the secretary and youth council advisor for the local Montgomery NWACP. So she basically was like planted by the NWACP, but a lot of these behind the work that the NWACP did, they also were kind of like in the same with the Democrats, more like they was with the Democrats, and the Democrats picked and chose who would be our leaders. Okay? They used these prominent black faces, these prominent black people to put in front of America that black people were doing great, they were doing well, everybody could do really well. No black people should live under any kind of, poverty. Everybody can pull themselves up from their bootstraps and all this other nonsense. And that wasn't the truth. That was not the truth. Okay. The NWAC were connected and they were getting support through the Democrats because the Democrats wanted to use that as a way to hide behind what was really going on, white supremacy. Because the Republicans and the Democrats were always fighting over the slaves being free. Even during that industrial time, what they did is that they took, you got to go all the way back to the time when they was coming up with the cotton gin. When the jobs were the slaves no longer was picking cotton, they had the cotton gins, and the cotton gins were more, able to make them more money because it moves a lot more quicker. Slaves at the time they had a certain amount to pick during the day and didn't even get paid sometimes. And sometimes they cheated them out of their money or whatever. And the slave would be like when they didn't have a voice to really they didn't really have a voice at the time to speak up because they were being oppressed. Okay? They were being, their spirit was broken. They had no military power. They had nothing. And anytime anybody defended themselves, you either ended up being lynched or you were considered the troublemaker, and they would lynch you, or they'll threaten your family or harass your families, burn your church down, destroy your, destroy whatever you had. That's how they moved. That's what they did. The Republicans weren't about that. Now, I ain't gonna say all Republicans in that time, because they're always infiltrators. In every organization, you always gonna find an infiltrator. That's why Christ's story had to be, the story of Judas had to be told. Okay? That's why he died the way he did and always went out as a traitor. But Judas never repented. Instead, he took himself and supposedly hung himself, or committed suicide or whatever. This is what was told in the end of his life, of his story. He never repent for his evil doings. Instead, he stayed sorrowful in his heart, and he did not come out and tell the truth about what he did to Christ. He didn't come to the cross. Instead, he went somewhere to die. He went somewhere to die and kill himself. So eventually, your evil will eventually enter your own heart. So that's why we say, when people do wicked, dirty, evil, wicked things, underhanded things to harm an innocent land, to lie, to get money or whatever. That's why the story had to be told at the end when Jesus died on that cross, who Judas was. Judas had to be a special character in that organization, because he was the most treacherous one. He was the one that walked with Jesus and everything, broke bread with Jesus, sat at the table with him and fed him and everything else like that. But truly, Judas didn't want to be about helping poor people. He wanted to just advance himself. And there's a lot of people that will do that. They get close to somebody, in proximity to a person, just so that they can have some type of way of having some kind of influence. Okay, and that's what Judas' whole thing was. He came from a political life, working for, these people. That's who he was. He was working both sides of the fence. He really was not about taking care of the poor people. He wasn't about the movement for the people. He was more about it for himself. And at the end, he got caught out there in the end, and he just couldn't face his judgment. He just couldn't face it. He couldn't face it, so he went to hell. His body stayed out there, and his body had to rot. It stayed out there. That's why when you read that story, that whole story is about the book of life, period. Before life is whether you're going to choose to do right or you're going to choose to do evil. And there really, truly isn't any easy way. And to do the right thing is the hardest thing for anybody to do, because we all want to have our own way. But there's a way you can have it, but you got to do it in decency and in order. And you can't step out of order, out of boundaries. You can't lie. You can't just do things just to hurt innocent lives or whatever. And that's a hard thing sometimes to do. Even when people are trying to give you the truth, you want to harm them because you don't want to speak. You don't want the truth to be told. You don't want to hear the truth, but it has to be told. That's the way to help you. And sometimes you can sit down and you can search yourself. Am I really doing this the right way? Or is there another way I can approach the situation? That's why God give us a chance every day to try to work right and work and get our character right in how we handle and approach situations. Now, Jesus' movement was about trying to do the right thing, and everybody think it was always about money and influence. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about influence. The same thing what happened with Martin Luther King and Malcolm. Malcolm really truly had that experience. Okay, his family was broken up to pieces. His father was killed, and the mother, the church and everything was intimidated by the KKK, and they weren't able to help the family. And neither was the father. Insurance wasn't covered because they try to say he hit his own self over the head, and he put himself out there, and committed suicide. So the life and the policy that the father had in case anything happened to him, which the church kept up for him, they wouldn't pay the family. So the mother did everything she can to try to feed her children until she had went into a depression, and they had to come and take the children from the mother. And it was Malcolm and his brothers and sisters. I forgot how many kids there were. It was a lot of kids. And Malcolm father treated him more special because Malcolm was the lightest one, because his mother was he told his story in the book. And then if you read the book written by Alex Haley did his interview. I mean, wrote his story, his autobiography. Alex Haley did that story because he was a writer. He did the writing. He wrote about Malcolm's experience. He had an interview with Malcolm and everything. So I read the story. I read the book. I also saw the movie that was done by Spike Lee. It took from that book. Some of it was captured from the book, and also some things were also told through Malcolm's family, his relatives, that his surviving relatives, because Malcolm was not found in prison by this Islamic brother, okay? The one they showed in the movie. Malcolm was actually introduced to Islam when he went to jail, and his brother used to come and see him, and his brother was a part of the organization. When you read the story, you'll find that his brother, he had a brother, and the brother was the one when Malcolm went to jail, and the brother was a at that time in part of Nation of Islam. So he used to come and write his brother and teach and give his brother a lot of teachings about the Nation of Islam. And then somehow or the other, um, then his brother and everything said something to him to Elijah Muhammad about his brother's situation. So Malcolm was a very intelligent kid. He was self-taught, okay? He was learning from a little boy. He was watching everything that was going on around him. Even when he was out there in the street, he was out there at 15 whatever years old. After going to reform, he was sent to reform school because he was into the gang, into that life. He used to run numbers for the pimps and the hustlers, and then all of a sudden he started growing big in the business, and then he started doing robberies and hitting rich people houses and stealing things and everything. And his name got out there, and he started knowing how to be out there and be a pimp, a hustler, a drug addict. He was into the drug life, the heroin, cocaine, whatever. He was into all of that from the streets because that was his way of survival. It was his way of survival. He used to work as a dishwasher. He used to take little jobs, and when he could get work and stuff when he was young, and work at dishwashing places, and work in little places like that. But then he got tired of that little bit of chump change, and he wanted something bigger. So that's when he started running those streets in New York. He came, and he was from Boston, but he learned how to be a hustler when he came to New York, to the big apple. And that's where it all began for Malcolm, until he went to Boston. He did some robberies and he had to do some time. And his brother was helping him, teaching him some of the things of Islam. And that's what saved him, because that would help him, structure himself and get himself together and everything. Because Malcolm had some kind of temper now. Malcolm was like one of those men that will just like let you have it. He wasn't the type that would just sit there and just take no shit. Okay. But Martin just was brought up in a totally different way. Like, he was taught strategy. He knew how to have more control over his feelings about things, and know how to talk about it in a calm way, other than in a hostile way, because he had to set some kind of example. Being a preacher's kid, that was his reputation. But after a while, when they met, they started to build a relationship. And Malcolm already let Martin know we were both marked men. He let him know. They had that conversation together. He used to always talk to, I believe, to Martin's wife, um, at the time, to deliver sometimes his messages. And he spoke to Martin. He says, "Man, this ain't gonna work. These motherfuckers going upside your head. You think I'm gonna take that shit? Is that really the way you want to see our people really get the justice that they really supposed to get. Sometimes you just gotta, let them know. But see, Martin was just really letting Malcolm know too. They both was right in their own way. They both was right for each other. Good and evil, the good and evil conscience. Martin was like, yeah, I wish I can do that shit, man. But guess what? They got the military power. They got the guns. We don't have that. We don't have that. So we got to do it this way. Because if we don't, we're going to get a whole lot of people killed. And if anybody should just get killed, let it be us. But at least try to do it in peace and turn them to their conscience. That was Martin's side. Even though he would wish he could take a damn whatever and do some damn damage. But you know what? When you like out, you don't really got the military power. And that's what has been really, truly the black man's down while he's been kept down in America because the black man didn't have no military power. Like, I mean, they had some kind of way to defend themselves, but they didn't have as much power as the white men who had them living in oppression. And it's still sort of like that way. It's still that way. So that's why you have to be really careful how you strategize and how you fight. You can't be out there loud and talk about, oh, we gonna kill and we gonna get guns and we gonna do this and that and everything, because then the guns turn on you. What you gotta do is you gotta learn how to reason first. And like Christ strategized his fight. The Roman soldiers and everything, Christ was like, look, take me. Okay? That's why he told Peter not to use the sword or not to fight because, I gotta, this is my time. You know what I'm saying? So if anything, let me just go down. And that's the way Malcolm and Martin, they had their own two differences. So when Martin went down, Malcolm, I'm sorry, went down first because he was older and he was the one with more mouth. And he was the one that was letting them know, yeah, y'all come this way. We got something for your so and so. We got something for them dogs and we got something for all of that shit. That was his way of fighting, letting them know I'm going to fight back. We going to just go down. We going to go toe to toe. But Martin's thing was, let's reason. Let's have this conversation. Let's see that you're doing this to us. We're human, just like you are. We bleed just like you bleed. And you know what you're doing. Black people shouldn't be out here having to get their head getting bust upside their head for something they should have had at birth. They American citizens, they human beings, they worked all their life, they didn't getting paid, they not getting paid. And y'all just taking, and leaving them with nothing. And y'all brought them some of them here. You know what I'm saying? And it's wrong to treat people like that. That was his way of turning them to their conscience first. Okay? That's what it was. And that's how the devil works. And who's been the enemy of America was always the Democrats. Malcolm said it. He said they controlled the White House. He gave a number of how many Democrats are with Republicans. Very little, large, small numbers of Republicans, and a whole large number of Democrats because it was more white people who had that hatred, that racism, that wickedness, and everything in them than it was the ones who were good. So they had the advantage. And they still have the advantage because they already got you brainwashed. They already told you that the Republicans didn't like black people. Republicans were racist. The Republicans is all about the rich people. The Republicans, da 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 da. No, the Republicans was just like, yeah, we work together. Everybody worked for them, hand in hand together, but everybody got to work with decency and in order. That's how the Republicans, they were conservative, they were Judeo, they were Christians, and they didn't believe in slavery. They believe every man should have a fair share and have a chance in the opportunities. And it was always about America first. You know what I'm saying? The Democrats, they play their little games and everything to stay in power. Yeah, we're going to give them something, but first of all, let's kill their leaders. That's what they did. It didn't try to throw them a crumb from the table like they did something great for us. LBJ already said he was going to have us voting for him for the next 200 years. That's what he said. That's documented. But then these black fools out here, the ones who out here clowning and doing the stupidest things for the Democrat Party, because they getting something from the table. Because the more they keep us in that way of thinking, that they really giving us something and they really care about us, they don't give a damn about us, okay? They rather replace us with these damn foreigners than to give us what they supposed to give us. And give these foreigners better opportunities than to give you and have you fighting up against them instead of really fighting against them, who are the real enemies. They used Obama to put, they planted him in there to make him look like he was going to be the first black president. He was going to do so many great things for black people and whatever. And some black people are just still, you know, delusional. You can't take them out of their delusion. They slowly but surely coming out of it, but they've been in it so long that they're afraid to just like try to step out on faith. And that's just what it is. So this is what I wrote here, and I said it because I know I've studied both men. This and this ain't just something I just started studying since Trump became president or the Republicans are now in office. No, I've been studying this since I've been a child. You know, it's like scaffolding. You know, you learn something at some stage of your life, and then it goes at another level and another level and another level as God take you through different places in your life. And you start to see things and you start to remember things. Like I remember when it was like blase blase. And I remember when this one, why do I always see Democrats in the church asking, getting votes from us and always want to jump in church with us and everything? Because that was their way to stay close enough to you to know how you were strategizing. That's why they was in the church, studying you, learning how you going to do things for your community. And black people get up there and they perform and they start talking politics, which they should not be doing during service, because when they're doing that, they're giving you, they're giving these people information to use against them. And they've always done that. Go back and watch a whole lot of the old movies, like slave movies, or even watch movies like Roots, from not the first Roots when he was first brought in as a slave, but the ones from the next generation. How the Democrat Party always stayed close to the black church. Okay? Notice how they, every time it's election time or time for them to get votes and all that other stuff, they come to the black church. Never have I ever witnessed any Republican in our place of worship. But they were the racists, right? No, because they respect that. They respect the fact that you had your time with praising God in your image and doing the things the way you do it in your spirit and in your way of doing things, like seeing you as yourself. And they respect that. They didn't interrupt your worship. But the Democrats, if you ever notice, they always in the black church during election season. Look at the fool, what he just did the other day. That should tell you something right there. There's a whole lot of things that they doing right in front of your face, but you all caught up on they giving you something. And then this Iran war, let me tell you, this Iran war been going on for decades, just like Donald Trump said to you. He knows how these Democrats move. He knows what they do. Remember, he was one himself. He was playing on that side of the team before himself. And now he flipped over to becoming a Republican to warn us and let us know. Oh, he's a racist. But you know what? Maybe he was back then. Maybe he did have that kind of way of thinking, and because he was a Democrat. But now God has removed that from him, and you got to see it for what it is. You got to see him as Paul. If you still thinking he's the same man he was when he was a Democrat, then you thinking wrong. Because I listened very carefully to Trump. And I've noticed Trump from even the time from me remembering him from his life in the world, in the business world and everything. And some things still he probably struggled with, but still in all, that's not the same Trump that he was when he was running with the Democrats. Okay? He's not the same man. Just like God changed Paul. Paul was evil. He went after the Christians who killed them, and he was on the team with those Pharisees and everything. He was some kind of, man that was powerful at the time. What was Paul's profession? I put it out here. Let's go and check the scriptures. Paul was a wicked man until God changed him. It's in here somewhere. Let me go through all these graphics that I did. I did so many. Like this one. This right here was to keep the black votes. He had to continue to have the black people following him and believe him because he came with the charm and deceptiveness. He's deceptive. I didn't see Obama when he was president because my eyes were blinded by the flesh. But when he came out from being president, I'm seeing how he's been moving, how he's been doing certain things. Now I'm starting to see it for who it is. Okay? And a lot of black people are starting to notice it too. That he was Satan playing in our faces all the time. He was a plant. He was planted there so he can keep the control of the black vote. Notice he only come out speaking when it's voting time and all this other time, and especially with Trump. Notice how they tricked them up with that 2020 election and made it, and then they orchestrated this whole thing. They orchestrated January 6th. Now I'm sure it was some pretty few rhinos in it because there are some rhinos, Republicans in name only. But at night they got that hoodie on their head. They in there with they taking hands and doing things behind the scene with Satan at night. Okay? And you'll know who they are when they come up against Trump. You know them in their life. You know how they moving. You know there's some rhinos. You can see them. When you in the scriptures, God will expose them to who they are. They only Republicans and names only, and some just want to be Republicans just to get to advance themselves, just about themselves. They ain't about America. They just there for themselves. I already told you who those people were. You know them. Ain't that many Republicans. Okay. So, like I said, that's why I said it in this election right now. People talking about 2028, they're going to vote for this one and that one. I said, Republican. I said, I don't know. I really don't know who I am going to vote for because right now it's too early to tell. That's another 2 more years from now. Things change. People change. So you just got to watch and wait and stay prayed up. That's all I can tell you. I can tell you. Because you know what? After what happened with my voting for Obama for 2 times, I ain't going down that route again. And they definitely wasn't going to get me with Kamala because I will never vote for a woman president. I'm just going to say that. I will never do it. Never. I already know that. That wouldn't be the right move. And especially if she's a Democrat. There's no way I will vote for a woman president. And I'm a female. Because like I said, I follow the scriptures. I don't follow man. Earthly man, I don't follow. I follow the scriptures. And when God said he made man the head and the woman to give birth and bear pain and the birth pains and all that other stuff, it's a reason why God said that. Everybody want to use Judge Deborah. Deborah was a prophetess. Just like I'm trying to be a prophetess to you. Deborah was a prophetess. She helped Barak to strategize his fight. She was a judge, but she was a prophetess. The people had no order, they had no law, but she was a woman that had a strong faith, a strong relationship with the Lord. She was a prophetess. She has that gift. She had that gift. And there was women that did have spiritual gifts like that. And that's who Deborah was. But she didn't rule over the people. She didn't. Read the Bible. God used Deborah. God used a lot of women in the Bible for certain seasons, for certain reason. But they still had to have a connection to the Lord. Now, some of them didn't. Now, this woman that had to take out this evil king, and she had to drive that dong on nail through his temple because he was a wicked man. He was a wicked ass man. Okay? Mm-hmm. But anyway, back to what I was saying about Martin and Malcolm, about people not reading history and studying it for themselves and knowing the scriptures as well. Follow the scriptures, and then you'll be able to follow who these people are. You'll see who these people are. Don't go by what other people out there telling you and trying to pump you up with and have you all delusional and crazy. Follow the scriptures. That's why I said I don't follow no man or no woman who don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. If they don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, they cannot lead me nowhere. Okay? And you can see how they be moving. Like Kamala, she don't have a relationship with Christ. She's a liberal. Why would I want that woman to be a president of this nation? Where she'll let anybody come in here and just kill us all? She already showed you who she is. Believe her. Lying. She's a scammer. She's a witch. She's evil. She's like Jezebel. Okay? She's like Jezebel. She was connected with those people and everything. And she ain't gonna, maybe she would change. Who knows? I don't know. Only God knows. But from what I see right now, I couldn't see her being nobody's leader. Okay? Especially in a high office as president. Oh no. Hell no. I value my life. I do. I value my life and I don't play with it. And I don't let nobody put me in that situation. I did it already with Obama because I wasn't paying attention that much to politics. But now I'm open up to it and I'm watching it and I'm reading it and everything else each and every day that God is showing it to me. And I try to tell people, don't let these people fool you. Just because they talk a good game and they know how to talk real slick like Obama, but they wicked as hell. They are wicked as hell. His horns are starting to pop up. You gotta have the spirit of discernment. And the only way you're gonna get it is when you read your word. And I give the scriptures so people can go find the truth. Go find the truth. It says, every day God keeps exposing the wickedness and deception in American politics. The Democrat hijacked the civil rights movement and inserted themselves into black spaces so they could control how black America moved, thought, and organized. They didn't want black people choosing their own leaders. They wanted to tell black America who the leaders should be. The late Minister Malcolm X warned us about this long ago. People forget Malcolm understood the system from the inside before he ever converted to Islam. His father was a Baptist preacher, killed by white supremacists. His mother struggled trying to feed her children, and no help came from the church or insurance companies after his father died. The family was broken apart, and the children ended up in foster care. Malcolm Little, aka Malcolm X, I gotta fix that name. I wrote it, I misspelled Malcolm X, but it's Malcolm. Grew up in the streets around drugs, crime, hustling, and survival. He saw America from the bottom up. He lived the suffering many black Americans were facing firsthand. Meanwhile, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came from a more privileged and educated background. His father, Martin Luther King Sr., and his real name was Michael, but he went somewhere and he changed his name because he was influenced by Martin Luther. So he came and changed his name and his son's name. But Martin Luther King was actually born Michael. His name was Michael. So anyway, and grandfather were Baptist preachers, and he was raised differently than Malcolm. Dr. King still had a very young as a very young man in his 20s when Rosa Parks and the Montgomery movement elevated him into national leadership. Malcolm was older than Martin, more experienced, and already understood how dangerous the system truly was. That's why Malcolm was considered far more dangerous. Malcolm wasn't teaching black people to stand there getting beaten with bully clubs, attacked by dogs, and humiliated while begging for acceptance. He believed black people had a right to defend themselves and think independently. That mindset terrified the establishment. After Malcolm's death and Dr. King himself started changing, he began speaking more openly about poverty, injustice, government hypocrisy, and the suffering of poor people in America. By the time he went to Memphis, this was no longer just about peaceful marches and speeches. The climate in America was becoming explosive, and both men already understood they were marked men. This is why I keep telling people stop letting political parties rewrite black history for you. Read for yourself, research for yourself, and learn both sides instead of moving only off emotions and political programming. They've been using that for years and years and years. Remember, black people didn't know how to read, they wasn't that educated. So whatever the preacher said, it was gospel. Okay? They didn't challenge it, no nothing, and they moved on emotions. They didn't move with intelligence and with that kind of way of thinking. So that's why black people were in the church being robbed out of their poverty. I mean, out of their poor income, giving money to all of these organizations, these churches, and these pimp in the pulpit pastors that lived off of the poor. But they wasn't doing anything to really better these people's lives. They was more taking advantage of these people. But then again, in Martin time, I don't know about how his father did things, but I think Martin, through the experience and being out there, he really cared. And that's why he took the punishment that he did and took that fight like he did. And then he was still a very, very young man. He was very young. He died at 39 years old. Even Malcolm and Martin died very young. I think they both were in their 30s when they died. But Malcolm was killed first because Malcolm, I think, was a little older than Martin when he died. But we're going to look that up just so I could be sure. Just so I can be sure. That's why I can't be no, I'm not attached to no organization. I go to church because I go for the word of God and Jesus and also to help around doing things with the young people, whatever. But all that other stuff, I don't take everything the pastor say from the pulpit as gospel. How old was he? Because I know he was older. He was 39 too. And remember, he died in 1965. Martin died in 1968. And he died that February, right during Black History Month. I know it was around 1965 or something like that. He was older than Martin. Yep, it was 1960. It was February 21st. On the day before. Yep, February 21st, and it was in. He was 39 years old, and he died 2 years before Martin. Martin died in 68, 3 years. So basically, he was at least 3 years older than Martin. Martin died, and it's funny how they both died at the same age, 39 years old. One was in February and the other one was in April. One was on April the 5th, 1968 in Memphis, and the other one was killed in an Autobomb in Harlem, New York in 1965. Martin was a little younger than Malcolm, but Martin was changing to become a Malcolm after the death of Malcolm. So they had to sit and wait and study him more. And that's why before he reached his 40th birthday, they assassinated him. Because by the time he would have turned 40, oh, it would have been on. Okay? See, so we're gonna see how old they were when they started their ministry. See, I'm doing this right here with you. And I think Malcolm was out there longer than Martin. He joined the Nation of Islam at the age of 27.
Martin Luther King Jr. began his Christian ministry at the age of 19, when he was ordained on February 25th, 1948.
You see, Malcolm started first, and then Martin followed behind Malcolm. Because remember, he was into the church at 19, and Malcolm was somewhere in jail. Okay, so it's kind of crazy. So I said it can't be a Martin without a Malcolm. They go both hand in hand. One was ready to change and turn more peaceful. The other one was ready to get radical. It was about to switch up. One was going to get more radical because Martin was about to get more radical. Malcolm was about to get more peaceful. You see, it was changing. That's why I said you can't never know how things are going to turn out to be. Like I said with Trump, Trump was more crazier, okay, when it was in his younger days. But as he growing older and he switched off parties from being a Democrat, you starting to see him a lot more rational and a lot more careful in his speech, in the way he talked. Because it wasn't. Let me tell you, he still don't give a fuck, but he just right now he's about that business. He's about doing some real damage to these damn Democrats because they've been doing a lot of fucked up shit to people. Not only was it starting to harm black people, but they started turning on America altogether. Altogether, they want to destroy America. They want to destroy every American, no matter what race, color, creed, whatever you are. That's how the Democrats are. That's Satan. Now we're starting to harm more white people than it is doing to black people because black people been fighting all their goddamn life. you know, and it's like we know how they move. We already know. Now it's starting to just mess up white people. White people are now starting to become, destroyed by all of these foreigners coming into this country and trying to take over and running this country like they think they run this country. So now they getting upset. And it's going to be more jumping off of that damn Democrat Party and jumping to be Republicans. It's about to be a different America. But we gonna get rid of these damn foreigners because they not gonna be coming in here like they were coming in here before when the Democrats was in control. Letting them just come here and live here and giving them amnesty, giving them businesses, letting them run businesses in people communities, especially in the black community. Damn Oriental people don't goddamn braid no hair. They don't freaking have to press and put relaxers in their hair. That's black people stuff. Products. How the hell they selling it to you? How the hell they get money to open up goddamn businesses in black communities and they little Chinese little food places, and now these damn Indians and these other Arabs and shit coming here opening up all these damn little bodegas and stores and shit in everybody community and buying up all of the damn franchises in America, and they can't do that shit in their own goddamn country. And then on top of that, they don't even praise and worship the same God that we worship here in the United States of America. But they bring in their pagan religions and everything and saying, oh, religion, freedom. Freedom is in Christ, boo. That's what we've been doing all along in America. And if that's not what you about, then you need to go on back and try to make things work for you where your country is under the same kind of religion and stuff practice you practice. Because you ain't coming here for no freedom. You coming here to rob, steal, kill, and fucking destroy. Because that's who you are, the devil. Workers of Satan, inequity. Ain't none of them no real true American. I don't give a shit what it says on paper. Is what's in their heart. And that's right. Clean the motherfucking house, Trump. Clean up. Okay? And it's going to get done because God said so. It may take a little while, but it's going to get there. Because I can see it happening because I believe it's going to happen. And it's happening now. Stop buying damn cars with gas and go for, because the cars with gas and everything, they're going to sell it to you cheaper. Okay? And that's why people probably like, oh well, I'm struggling, I can't really afford. Well, get a goddamn do the best you can and get the hell out of a car that runs with gas, so you don't have to keep complaining about a gas price. I'd rather have a damn Tesla than to have a Tesla or a hybrid or whatever than to have a car that just solely runs on gas. Because look at them damn gas prices. People just better wake up. And that's why Elon Musk came to join y'all in helping America with this economy and where to go. That's why they was burning Teslas. They don't want you to have cars with Teslas and anything. Talk about Elon Musk. And Elon Musk is this and Elon Musk is that. Elon Musk know just what the fuck they doing. Okay? That's the game they playing. Talking about Iran and the war in Iran, stop the war in Iran. No, burn them, fuck them motherfuckers, okay? Blow their asses up. And that's exactly what they doing. And Trump been trying to warn everybody. He knows how they moving. He knows how these Democrats think. And he knows Joe is a crooked person. Made the deal with the devil, him and Obama. They said Clinton's too, but I'm going to say more of them than Clinton. Because at least when Clinton was president, it wasn't this fucking bad. But these motherfuckers here, they treacherous. Obama and that damn Biden and Kamala, they treacherous. And they really trying to bring us scorpions and all kind of things on the poor people, on the working poor people. With them damn gas prices, with them damn Iranians and everything. Yeah, blow them motherfucking tanks up. Okay? And people need to get smart and stop driving so goddamn much. Okay? Well, anyway, y'all, I want to talk with y'all longer, but I have to get in my bed. But I will promise you tomorrow morning we will finish this conversation. Whatever the Lord puts on my heart. So thank you all that was able to be up here with me tonight. It's already 12 o'clock and this is late for me. But I have things I have to get out in the morning to do. But I will be back with you tomorrow. And if God's willing, we will continue this conversation. So you all stay good.